Game of Thrones and 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 Game of Thrones, Game of Thrones and Game of Thrones and Game of Thrones and Game of Thrones, Game of Thrones and Game of Thrones and Game of Thrones and Game of Thrones and Game of Thrones, Game of Thrones and Game of Thrones and Game of Thrones and Game of Thrones. Game of Thrones ended on Sunday. I know a lot of people were very less than happy with this season. But I personally was one of those people who wouldn't talk negatively about it until it was over. All of my friends were telling me how terrible it was. I had one friend who was texting me constantly after each episode being like, oh my god, this and this and this. And I went, hey man, let's wait till it's over. We need to see what happens. We need to see what is revealed. We need to see if these things that you hate are going to change, if they're going to be seen in a new light, if new information is going to be revealed. And for the most part, I liked a lot of stuff, especially in season 8 here. I liked a lot of the character interactions were great. They're as good as they've ever been in the series. I think the first 3 episodes in particular are really great. And those last 3, I mean, I'm going to get into spoilers. Those last 3, after they defeat the Night King, I don't have a problem with where they went with the story and what happens to Daenerys and Jon and Arya and all of them. But I have a problem with how they got there. I think it's quite obvious that this season needed to be at least 2 episodes longer. Okay, could have used an entire 2 seasons, honestly. Again, even in these last 3 episodes, even though it was moving really fast, I still held out hope. And I think that might have been an irrational way to look at it, especially because I'm a huge fan of Game of Thrones, and I may have been a little blind. But again, I wanted to see where it went. I wanted to save my thoughts until the end. I was watching the finale, and I loved it until the last 20 minutes. I had no negative thoughts on Game of Thrones until the last 20 minutes of that finale, and oh boy, was that bad. Those last 20 minutes were straight up insulting. I'm getting emotional talking about it. I almost feel a tear starting to run down my face. Oh my god, it was so bad, you guys. Every character they butcher. Every character that's still alive anyway, and I don't mean actually butcher. I mean they butcher their characters right in that last 20 minutes. And I know people have been feeling that all season, but I didn't feel it until that last 20 minutes, because that last 20 minutes was god awful. Tyrion. You're not even in it, Tyrion. Oh, okay, that's Tyrion's ending? Great.
I'm in for some heavy criticism.
Oh, I wouldn't say that.
Oh, he's kind to me. Never would have guessed. He's not kind.
He
What? What does he say about me?
I don't believe you're mentioned.
Sansa's ending? Where did her character go? They were setting her up to do something awesome or be something awesome. And we get the most anticlimactic ending for her. I'm the Queen of Winterfell. Great. What about everyone else? What about how that affects the other people? Daenerys, what do I need to say about her? I mean, her arc of becoming the Mad Queen is like, yeah, that's okay, and I guess that would make sense, but it was not earned. I mean, it happened within the course of... I mean, I know there had been a lot of lead up in Season 7, and especially Season 7, leading up to her getting to that point where she is a more bloodthirsty, evil leader. And even then that felt like the seeds being laid. It didn't feel like the whole progression of her getting to that point where she wants to destroy King's Landing. And I get it. Missandei gets her head sliced off, and that really is the catalyst that gets her and Grey Worm to want to destroy all of King's Landing. But again, it was too quick. I needed an episode in the middle of that for them to see that anger growing inside of them, not snap of the fingers, she's the bad guy now. And when she gets killed, I didn't feel it. I wasn't sad, I didn't tear up, because it wasn't earned. Even Grey Worm's character, oh my god, he's one of the worst. Oh my god, their handling of Grey Worm is just such a travesty. I felt like I didn't even understand Grey Worm by the end. I didn't even know who he was. They might as well have had a whole entire new character. Jon going back to the wall and leading the wildlings again. I don't know why, because saying that out loud, it sounds like it wouldn't be that unsatisfying. It sounds really true to Jon's character. But, the way it was executed was not good. And it felt like the only reason he was going back to the wall was Grey Worm, whose character I didn't even understand anymore. And that felt so... it felt like I got stabbed in the back a little bit, you know? I don't know how you could have picked something more disappointing. I get the idea in a simple writer's perspective of saying, oh, we'll have him end where he began. And that's a really common thing to do with writing a story. In a story like Game of Thrones that's supposed to throw away those conceptions of, hey, this is how stories are. This is a tool in storytelling. It feels so... not George R.R. Martin, and you can this season, and especially this finale, you can feel his hands totally off. Even in season 7, I felt the plotting still there. I felt it to a certain extent, even though I kind of understood that he wasn't there and there were liberties being taken. Bran the Broken, again, I don't particularly have a problem with that, but we don't get anything. It's just Bran's the king because he deserves it. He went through a lot. Man, no big surprises either. Like, nothing to, like, leave us hanging for the future. No big reveal towards the end. And that was something I was almost sure was going to happen, like some crazy reveal or twist. And I'm not saying it has to have that, but, man, not even that. Oh, wow. It's, in every conceivable way, they failed. And I don't get it. It's absolutely crazy to me that no one watched it and went, hey, this is awful. We don't want this. Don't they do reshoots? Didn't they have like the highest budget of any of the seasons? I mean, I don't know if reshoots are a common thing on TV. Probably not, but damn, they should be after this fiasco. I'm not saying that it doesn't work. I'm saying that it's lazy, okay? And it's not lazy in the sense that they were, we gotta do this really fast, and it didn't make sense, and they left out a lot. It's lazy in the sense that they didn't try to surprise us in any way. They didn't try to break conventions in any way. And that, I felt that that's what Game of Thrones had always been about, was breaking the mold and breaking the wheel, like Daenerys says. And especially in the realm of fantasy stories, breaking that wheel. But the story ends in such a generic fantasy way. And then what they do with your favorite characters is literally is a cop-out for almost every single one. I mean, I guess Brienne's final scene is a little touching, but that's all just about her and Jaime's romance. And I felt that was half the season, it felt like. They had so many characters to focus on. Like, we get Davos for 15 minutes. We get the Hound with the most obvious climax to his storyline possible. Not saying it wasn't satisfying, but not going to say it was surprising either. Arya, after her storyline finishes up with the Night King, her character becomes useless. We never get to see her use her faces, even once. I guess the climax to that was Walder Frey. I guess. A fantasy story should have a big, sprawling, epic ending. And, you know, a lot of people complain about that kind of ending with something like Return of the King. But even if you thought Return of the King's ending was slow, you can't say it wasn't satisfying. You can't say you felt empty after watching that. Because with a huge story with so many characters, you need to have that type of ending to really finish off everybody's arc. And that just doesn't happen. And a lot of people were saying online that the last season of Game of Thrones didn't really have an arc. I mean, the characters didn't really have arcs. But, I mean, I disagree with that, but it's just that, again, it was a forced, rushed arc that didn't make a lot of sense because we don't get to feel a realistic and human progression of those kind of feelings. Feelings just don't happen in 2 seconds. I can't be just happy and the good guy and then immediately be like, I'm gonna kill everyone now. That doesn't work. That can eventually happen, but there needs to be a progression of feeling that way. I don't know if I blame D&D for all of this. I mean, look, there's more factors going into it than just them as to why it was rushed. Like, there's writers who maybe aren't being paid. The actors don't want to be there. There's a lot of factors as to why they probably rushed this last season. So I'm still holding out. And technically, I think this final season, looked really good. I think it was really good looking. And I'm actually excited to see what they do with the new Star Wars stuff. Because especially if they do a type of Old Republic thing, I think visually that'll look really cool. Look, Game of Thrones is fun. Was the last 20 minutes of the final season bad? Yeah, as bad as can be. But I kind of look at this last season, especially knowing that the books are coming, as kind of a sort of fan fiction. And on that level, I really enjoy it. And I think it's a really fun, exciting, well-made 6 episodes. Excluding that last 20 minutes, let me keep saying that. Last 20 minutes, awful, terrible, no excuse. Make sure you like, subscribe, and start reading those dang Game of Thrones books. Pick up a book, stretch your mind out. Get smart.